Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Devontae, and I sacrificed my time so you don't have to. I don't want the video to be as long as yesterday's video was, so I really want to condense this as much as humanly possible, especially given that the subject today regarding Jeff Hardy, if I were to talk about, and this is actually really sad to say when talking about Jeff Hardy, I would like to focus on the career highlights of Jeff Hardy, but if I were to focus on his career, which goes all the way back to 1993, if I were to focus on his career in the limelight of professional wrestling, and then also include his multiple upon multiple arrests, multiple upon multiple releases, due to his erratic behavior in regards to his problems. If I were to combine both of those together, this video will be well over an hour, and I just don't want that to be the case. Not to mention, the good thing about focusing on people like Edge, for an example, is you kind of by default focus on some of the more important things as far as, the contributions from Jeff Hardy in the wrestling business from an innovative standpoint. So I'll highlight certain points, but in reality, what I really want to talk about is Jeff Hardy's downfall. Kind of take it like a pro and a con, I can't be as charitable as I can possibly be without talking about, Jeff Hardy's contributions to professional wrestling. So obviously, Jeff Hardy's a legend in this business. Make no mistake about it. Sadly, in comparison to someone like Edge, who we talked about yesterday, his career is still ongoing. It's been pretty consistent for the most part, outside of obviously his 10-year absence. Or I guess, almost 10 years. Well, 9 years. And with Edge, he had the opportunity to come back in 2020 and compete at a high rate in the main event scene, just pretty much picking up where he left off. With Jeff Hardy, it's a different story. So obviously, he came to WWE in 1993, was a jobber. He was actually there before Matt Hardy. Matt came a little bit later, like in 94 or 95, one of those 2 years, but Jeff came first. And he had a certain look about him. Looked like a country boy, straight Alabama. He looked like a country Vanilla Ice, if that's the best way to, talk about his appearance at the time. But he wasn't known for his high risk-taking stuff, even throughout the majority of the 90s, up until like maybe 99, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe 98, but let's just say 99, because that's when him and Matt became known. But he was a jobber for the majority of the early 90s, but he was known for taking really hellacious ass sells. Like, he will sell his fucking ass. So Matt Hardy too, I'm not going to just completely devalue their entire early run. Yeah, they were jobbers, but they paid their dues for a long time. I don't think there's any wrestler, for the most part, at least still signed with WWE, that has paid their dues as long as the Hardy Boys, especially Jeff, because again, he came before Matt. We're talking about 93, 94, 95, 96, hell, 97, and even most of 98. They were just jobbers. Straight jobbers for 5 straight years. Nothing but straight fucking jobbers. And like I said, they paid their dues. And then 1999 happened, right? Now, mind you, obviously, Matt and Jeff, and I think that was kind of the problem with them. They were super duper fucking young. I mean, in 93, Jeff was probably like, 16 at the time. And I can't remember how he got around his age. I think it was something involving Scott Hall as to how he got around that whole ordeal. But he competed as a jobber when he was 16 years old. But more importantly, going throughout the early portions of the 90s, the Hardys just had this aesthetic look about them. And it's just like, they look like they came straight out of the fucking 90s. They were a product of their time. The curtain haircut, the way they dressed. I remember, you got to go look at some of Matt Hardy's home videos and back in the mid 90s, because Matt, talk about ahead of his time. He was vlogging back in the early 90s. Go look at his channel if you ever get the opportunity. But you see the way that they're dressing, when they were hanging out with Shannon Moore and Hurricane Helms, Gregory Helms, and they just look like straight out of the 90s, the flannel shirts, the band t-shirts and shit like that. I remember seeing Jeff in a Slipknot t-shirt with a flannel t-shirt on, the curtain haircut and stuff. Not a Slipknot, excuse me, not Slip, I mean Tool, excuse me, I said Slipknot, I meant Tool. And you have like the fucking haircuts, like, damn, bro, holy shit. But nevertheless, though, they got their big break, in my opinion. I know people like to go to the Acolytes when they won the tag team championships from them when they were with Michael PSAs. But as illustrated yesterday when talking about Edge, they got their big break in October of 1999. Yes, they were doing certain things, but mainly in October of 1999 when they had their Terry Invitational Best of 5 series, which ended up in the ladder match. Not going to go over that again. You can look at the Edge video if you want more of a description, but essentially, obviously, household names at that point for the most part, right? Especially being in the Attitude Era, you know, people are like, oh, household names. I don't think you understand how popular the Attitude Era was at that time. And to make it in the Attitude Era in the way that they made it, yeah, you essentially become household names really, really fucking quick. And, you know, it wasn't just that. You know, they build up throughout 99. You know, they had Terry Reynolds as a manager at the time. It wasn't Lita. Lita wasn't even in the company yet. Well, I mean, she was doing stuff as, you know, Godfather's hoes with Victoria. But, I mean, as, you know, as far as being effectively on the main roster, you know, I think she was still Miss Congeniality and doing shit on the indie circuit. But eventually they had Terry Reynolds, and it just wasn't working out. Now, Matt and Jeff had some fun matches. I still remember, like, you know, the Tornado Tag matches they were having with the New Age Outlaws. I remember Road Dogg was trying to one-up the Hardy Boys. You ever seen Road Dogg hit a fucking moonsault? You ain't seen Road Dogg hit a moonsault until you actually seen him in a steel cage match. But nevertheless, though, while they were building up throughout 99, going into 2000, that's when their shit really started to hit. They had this fantastic match with the Dudley Boys at the Royal Rumble 2000. Very short match. It feels like a long match, but in reality, it's only 10 minutes. It's a Tornado Tag Team table elimination match. I mean, it depends how you look at it. You can say an elimination match, or you can technically call it a 2 out of 3 falls match, because, I mean, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, technically, but you had to put each opponent through the table. It couldn't be like you put Devon through a table twice and you win the match. No, it had to be Bubba Ray and it had to be Devon, or it had to be Matt and it had to be Jeff. And Jeff, you know, pulling off one of his early risk-taking daredevil moves, if you will. He ended up having one of his earlier moments hitting the swanton off the top of the barricade, or the top of the entrance barrier, where the audience would be at in the nosebleeds. Hit a swanton off the entranceway, through Bubba Ray through a table. Fucking fantastic. Or I guess it was through Devon. He hit Bubba Ray with a chair and he fell through a table, but nevertheless. But this was the Hardy Boys making a name for themselves, and they were constantly doing shit like this throughout the week. So it wasn't like AEW where everybody on the roster is risk-taking. No, everybody had their certain niche, and the Hardy Boys was risk-taking and being daredevils. And obviously you go through WrestleMania 2000, and obviously by that point in time they're super over because they're just fucking batshit crazy. And you know, something that I think, and I talked about this yesterday when I said people really have this misconception that all the trademarks of the Attitude Era guys from like the Rock portion of the Attitude Era all started in like late 99 or early 2000. No, that includes the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys and Lita were not a thing until like halfway through 2000. People kind of have this conception that they started like in early 2000. No, it was halfway through 2000. As a matter of fact, me personally, I don't remember Lita and the Hardy Boys being a thing, because that's when they saved them, because they were trying to do this weird domestic abuse thing with S.A. Rios and Lita, which was so fucking stupid. But hey, it broke Lita away from S.A. and it got her with the Hardy Boys. I didn't see them start teaming up and become Team Extreme until like King of the Ring time in 2000. That's how late it was. In reality, honestly, I don't remember them having their first match together until like Fully Loaded, honestly. But you know, Hardy Boys and Lita were just like that's my childhood right there. The Hardy Boys and Lita. Oh my fucking god, were those some fun times. But nevertheless though, as they were building up, making a name for themselves, you know, the Hardy Boys, very different from Edge and Christian, where it's like Edge and Christian, they more often than not, even through cheating and shit, they always went over their opponents. The Hardy Boys were different. They jobbed a lot. And people have this misconception also that the Hardy Boys were like, you know, I mean, yeah, they were big names in the tag team scene and overall professional wrestling. But the misconception is that the Hardy Boys were these guys that were super dominant in their division. Nah, Hardy Boys lost to TNA on a consistent basis, you know, including Lita to Trish Stratus. The Hardy Boys, they lost on a consistent basis. The guys at the Acolytes, you know, I remember them having a problem trying to get through Right to Censor even. You know, like they again, this misconception of the Hardy Boys, like, no, they were just so fucking popular and so over. It's kind of like The Rock. The Rock lost way more than he won, but it's because it's The Rock. He was able to kind of overcome that shit, and the Hardy Boys was kind of the same way because they knew how to build up baby faces back then. But even after all that stuff, obviously, as we touched on yesterday with this TLC match, which was actually in their hometown at Raleigh, North Carolina, which they lost to Edge and Christian. We touched on that yesterday. I think one of the matches, and I didn't touch on this with Edge, so I can touch on it here, that no one ever talks about as far as the first time the Hardy Boys really kind of got the stamp of approval. They were already super over as is with Team Extreme, but I think it's really underrated that no one ever talks about the steel cage match with Edge and Christian at Unforgiven, because that's when Jeff did the Whisper in the Wind off the top of the cage for the first time. I think that match really put it over the top for them, because that was them, yeah, they were mapping out a story with the TLC matches and stuff like that, but this was the first time legitimately mapping out a legitimate story from beginning to end, and WWE giving them time. I mean, granted, yeah, it was a gimmick still, and they didn't have it's time to really flesh out a story as far as a normal tag team match. But I think that match is a really standout moment for the Hardy Boys, because the focal point was on them. And then Lita doing the diving Hurricane Rana on Christian in the cage match also. It was just fantastic. I think that was off a ladder too, but I could be wrong though. But that was a breakout moment for the Hardy Boys too. And obviously as time went on, they lost the tag team championships back to Edge and Christian. Then they won it back, because Edge and Christian beat them as Los Conquistadors and shit like that with the little mask on. And just Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, that's just a legendary tag team feud that I haven't really seen. And honestly, from a historical context, obviously I was too young at the time, maybe not even born at the time, but from a tag team perspective, there hasn't really been, in my opinion, a rivalry as far as the tag team scene is considered with the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian since probably the Hart Foundation and Demolition. That's probably the last time you've seen a really poignant tag team feud. Probably the Hart Foundation and Demolition. At that point in time, that was 10 years prior to that, you know what I mean? But as time started to go on, you go into 2001, and they're just at this point, they're just fucking retarded over it. They're some of the most, they are arguably, Team Extreme in 2001 are arguably not just the most over tag team, but the most over acts in professional wrestling, period. The Hardy Boys were so insanely over. MTV, TRL, actual legit magazines like Rolling, I think they were on Rolling, were they on Rolling Stone magazine? I can't remember actually, but they were super fucking over, and every goddamn kid under the age of 13 were just fucking in love with them. And all the superstars who came into professional wrestling today will tell you, people like Bayley, for an example, I know she's a hardcore Hardy Boys mark. People like, for an example, AJ Lee, she's a hardcore Hardy Boys mark. All these wrestlers that came into professional wrestling because of this time frame with the Hardy Boys, it's just, it's an understatement. And more particular, with all due respect to Matt, more in particular, Jeff and Lita were just they were fucking everything. I remember people in school were talking about, because that's the time when Matt and Lita were kind of like a couple and shit like that. And they're like, it should be Jeff and Lita. But I mean, obviously we know now that Jeff was already in a relationship with Beth at the time. Not Beth Phoenix, but his real life, now wife, Beth. But as time started to go on, throughout 2001, they were just getting more over and more over. Kind of complacent a little bit, but still, they were just so fucking popular that even with them being complacent, they could still be super duper over. And they kind of tested the waters a little bit with Jeff after all the stuff with the invasion. And then you had that awesome steel cage tag team match at Survivor Series. They were testing the waters to see whether or not they could separate the Hardy Boys, because, they succeeded with Edge and Christian. So it's okay, let's see if we can do it with the Hardy Boys. And they tried, but, it just didn't really hit that well. They tried to do this whole angle with Matt being jealous of Jeff because he kind of feels like he's trying to take Lita away from him and shit like that. And they had a special guest referee with Lita as the referee and Matt and Jeff, and it's they were trying to do Brett and Owen light, but it just didn't work, because at that point in time they were nowhere, not even fucking remotely close to the status of Brett and Owen at the time of their feud. So they attempted, but it failed miserably, and they got back together a month later, the team up, and they were in the Royal Rumble, and they tried to take out the Undertaker and shit. And speaking of which, as time started going on throughout 2002, they were still really popular, you know what I mean? But time started, it started to wind down a little bit. That's when, Lita, not too long afterwards, that's when she had her neck injury from that TV show she was doing stunt double work on. And, this is when Jeff legitimately tried to break out for the first time after his earlier singles run when he tried to break away from the Hardy Boys in late 2001. And eventually he had that first it started off with Brock Lesnar, and then Brock Lesnar completely demolished them, him and Matt both. And then he had that singles match with The Undertaker in one of the greatest television matches of all time, one of the highlights of Monday Night Raw. Jim Ross still remember those words when Jeff is climbing up the ladder, climb higher, kid, make yourself famous. Damn, that shit still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. That's when Jeff was going after the Undisputed Championship for the first time, and he failed, but it's one of the greatest losses of all time as far as like a superstar losing the match and still being able to get themselves super fucking over. And then Jeff, when he loses the match and he's like, Taker, I'm still standing. And then Taker comes back into the ring, and rather than beat the fuck out of Jeff, he puts his fist up, then he pats him on the back and he gives him respect, which in turn turned Undertaker babyface again, because throughout 2002, up until that point, he was a heel. That was during his early incarnation of his Big Evil run. But then Jeff started to flounder after that, and I think that has more to do with the fact that, they don't talk about it at the time, but it's pretty clear, Jeff was going through his first couple of problems when he couldn't get it under control. And I think that has more to do, call me crazy, because, not too long afterwards, maybe like a month or two later, or maybe a little bit later, that's when Matt got transferred to SmackDown, and he started his, his early incarnation of his V1 gimmick. And Jeff was floundering, and I think that has more to do with the drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and he was doing certain things, like, he won the European Championship from William Regal. I mean, granted, he lost to the RVD when RVD, combined the European Championship and the Hardcore Championship. And yeah, Jeff didn't really do much after Vengeance, for an example, and I think, again, that has more to do with the, substance abuse problems. I mean, he did have a great, mixed tag team match. Not mixed as in woman and girl, but mixed tag team as in it was Jeff and the Dudley Boys, Spike Dudley at least, with Bubba Ray Dudley taking on 3 Minute Warning and that awesome Elimination Tables match at Survivor Series that year. That was a great opener. And then, they tried to give Jeff stuff. They really, really, really wanted Jeff to break out as a single star as early as 2003. And they gave him people like Jericho to work with. They gave him people like Shawn Michaels to work with. And, just Jeff, he had a substance problem. And they tried to put him in rehab for the first time in early 2003. And they gave him an ultimatum. Either you go to rehab and you get your shit straightened out, or we have to fire you. And like most addicts, Jeff took it upon himself to, not go to rehab, and he got fired for it. And, he started doing motocrossing for a little bit, like around 2003, 2004-ish. And, eventually went to TNA. And I don't remember much from his TNA run at the time. I remember the stuff he was doing with Abyss and shit like that. But, outside of that, like I said, I'm trying to make this as condensed as possible, so I really want to focus on his WWE career. I mean, with all due respect to his TNA career, well, with the exception of one, which we'll get to later, which I think you know what I'm talking about. But eventually, after his TNA run, he did come back to WWE in 2006. This was during Edge's Rated R run. And, he confronted Edge. This is when Edge was feuding with Cena, and he had like the little spinny Rated R belt and shit. And I kind of thought that was going to go somewhere. Me being a naive 14-year-old, I thought that maybe they were going to do Jeff and Edge, and they could have done something. And I remember popping super hard when he came back too, because I was into the Dirt Sheets, but I wasn't really, really, really into the Dirt Sheets. Ironically enough, until later on that year is when I got really into it, when I started watching RVD Tito, then eventually PS Power in early 2007. But like during that frame, I was like right on the cusp of pretty much being what I am today, I guess, essentially as a smark. But at that time, I was still out of the loop a little bit, enough to not know that Jeff Hardy was going to return. And, he had his confrontation with Edge, which was fucking epic. And, he had a bit of a, how do you say this? I wouldn't even say that. I want to just say he kind of continued off his 2003 stuff, because he did leave at a pretty decent height. And, he started to have really, really fun matches in the mid-card. I remember his feud with John Morrison over the Intercontinental Championship. They had an awesome ladder match. I remember his stuff with Carlito for a little bit. And, eventually he did team back up with Matt later on that year in 2006. They got back together. They did that ECW December to Dismember show, which was a fucking terrible show. One of the worst pay-per-views of all time. So bad, even that Paul Heyman and Vince got into an argument, which led to Paul Heyman leaving that time, and he hasn't been back since he came back in 2012. But, him and Matt had a banging match with Eminem in the opener in that pay-per-view, from what I remember. The whole show sucked except for that match. And then obviously they had that fatal 4-way ladder match at Armageddon, which led to Joey Mercury's horrible fucking, injury when he got his face crushed by Jeff. Talked about that yesterday too. But going into 2007, and pretty much for the most part in the first half of 2007, it was Matt and Jeff teaming up. And it felt nostalgic watching them teaming up together. You know, Jeff was still relatively young at the time. I don't think Jeff was even 30 yet. He turned 30 later on that year, but I think he was still 29 in early 2007. And, you know, they were having their matches with Eminem. They did their stuff with, you know, Cade and Murdoch. Rest in peace to Cade. And you know, it was fine for what it was. I still remember the world's greatest tag team. They got back together and they had an awesome ladder match with the Hardy Boys. I think at Extreme Rules, maybe, I think. But eventually Jeff did split off again because he was starting to get really fucking popular as a single star again. And you know, he won the Intercontinental Championship and he started to do his thing throughout 2007. Even got a what was it? Did he get a championship match in 2007? No, he didn't. No, he didn't, because that's when him and Triple H were the sole survivors at Survivor Series. That's when Jeff's popularity really fucking exploded. And you know, he had that match, and I know a lot of people in the audience, me personally, I was about to turn 16 at the time, but even me, I was really into the whole Jeff Hardy Randy Orton feud. That's a really underrated feud that no one really talks about nowadays anymore. That's when Jeff really exploded. And I thought, you know, maybe there was a chance that, being naive at the time, I thought maybe there was a chance that Jeff could win the WWE Championship against Randy Orton, and maybe he can go into WrestleMania with it. I mean, no. He ended up losing to Randy at the Royal Rumble. And I know before then, you know, obviously one of his biggest moments in his entire career, which I know for a lot of you guys in the audience, this was like the pinnacle of your childhood when Jeff did the swanton to Randy off the beam, threw him on the floor. I know a lot of people say that's, you know, believe it or not, that actually, even as late as 2008, that actually got a lot of people into professional wrestling, believe it or not. I can speak for my audience, and I hear a lot of you guys talk about, oh, you know, that early Jeff Hardy run in 08 is what got me into professional wrestling. Mind you, not older fans of the Attitude Era, people who are probably now maybe in their mid-20s who were like 9, 8 years old at the time. Because it wasn't just Jeff Hardy, you know, doing the fun shit. He had that look, bro. That look was just like, he always had the look in the Hardy Boys, you know, era too, but like it was just even more crazy, you know, the untucked wife beater and like the jeans. It wasn't like the, you know, like the fucking, you know, goth shit that he was wearing at the time back in the early 2000s. He looked like a scene kid. He actually can fit in today with that appearance with some of the SoundCloud rappers with a different color hair. Sometimes he'll have it braided, he'll have it out flowing. It was like different colors, and he'll have like the tattoos, and you know, he'll do like the crazy fucking dance, you know, the Jeff Hardy dance everybody does. And he was just really fucking cool. If I had to describe Jeff Hardy in one word at the time, it was cool. He was just a very cool wrestler. And you know, me being closing in on 16 years old, I guess for me it didn't really matter all too much, because I mean, I don't know, I just wasn't really into the scene shit, but I know a lot of kids who thought that Jeff Hardy looked really fucking cool at the time. And in my opinion, for Jeff Hardy breaking through as a single star, I still remember the qualifying match. This is what actually made me look at Jeff Hardy in a different way. The qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber, and it was Jeff versus Shawn Michaels on an episode of Raw. That is a fucking insanely good match that never gets talked about. That's one of the best TV matches of all time. One of the most underrated TV matches is Jeff Hardy versus Shawn Michaels qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. Oh no, it wasn't a qualifying match. I think they were just having a match, but it was going into the Elimination Chamber because they were both participants in the Elimination Chamber. And that was a fucking fantastic match. Jeff won that match too. And when Jeff won that match, because it's Shawn Michaels, so you know, when you see someone beat Shawn Michaels clean, it kind of like makes you sit up like, oh shit. Because, you know, Shawn loses matches clean, but it's usually to other main event guys, you know what I mean? And yeah, he was putting over Mr. Kennedy and shit like that, but Kennedy's a heel. To see a babyface go over Shawn Michaels clean was fucking insanely rare at the time, who wasn't a main event superstar, right? And for Jeff to beat him on regular television was just fucking crazy to me. And, you know, he went on to do his thing in the Elimination Chamber. He ended up losing. And, you know, I think, I could be wrong, I think this was his first time he had his wellness policy violation, right? At least in WWE on his second run. Maybe I could be wrong, maybe he had another violation, but I remember him having his first wellness violation. And he, from my understanding, listening to what everybody's saying, he was supposed to win this Money in the Bank the Money in the Bank match that year at WrestleMania 24, And they gave it to CM Punk because he obviously got busted for a wellness violation. And also, I think around this time too, that's when his house burned down, and I could be wrong, I think his dog died in the house burning shit that happened at the time too. So Jeff wasn't really having too much fun in the early portions of 2008 compared to his fans. But you know, Jeff Hardy was still doing his thing, you know what I mean? You go throughout 2008 with him as Intercontinental Champion, he was building up just like crazy repertoire of not just good matches, because he had that fucking awesome match with Umaga at Extreme Rules also. But it was just it wasn't just the quality of Jeff's matches. It was just also just next to Cena. And one may argue, even at that time, I will argue that Jeff Hardy in 2008, for sure in 2009, but in 2008, Jeff Hardy was the top guy. He was, even as Intercontinental Champion. I would make a strong argument that Jeff Hardy, if not the top guy, for sure was the most popular wrestler in WWE. And with that being said, in the entire world. He was just on fire. And then you make it to that middle portion of 2008, obviously at No Mercy, when he had that match with Triple H. And, you know, he lost to Triple H with the crucifix pin. But that's when, in my opinion, Jeff Hardy's popularity hit an all-time fucking high. And then Jeff, obviously, he went to the Survivor Series, and you know, he lost the match and he came out with a little bit of an edge, no pun intended, because that's who he beat for the championship in the triple threat at Armageddon. But this is when Jeff was it felt like he was teasing a bit of a heel turn a little bit, but in reality, he was just, you know, he was just kind of, how do I put this with Jeff? He was just trying to find an attitude to kind of make it more of a reason for him to get inserted into the championship match. Because that's when he was, you know, constantly disrespecting Triple H. He was blindsiding The Undertaker on a consistent basis. He even had a great Extreme Rules match with him on a television SmackDown episode. Granted, the Big Show got involved, but he still beat The Undertaker in an Extreme Rules match, you know, with that little leg drop shit over the ladder. And he went into Armageddon and he ended up winning the WWE Championship, right? And then, you know, he had that match with Edge, and then Matt Hardy fucked him over, and then they had a bit of a feud because Matt Hardy was jealous of Jeff Hardy. They had that match at WrestleMania 25, which was kind of underwhelming to me, at least. The Extreme Rules match could have been a little... I like the finish with the twist of fate into the chair and shit, but like, you know, still, nevertheless, though, you know, kind of an underwhelming match outside of the finish. And then they had like the I Quit match also, and you know, Jeff Hardy jumping through both of the tables with Matt underneath it was a really cool creative finish. And then Jeff Hardy started to feud with Punk after he because initially he beat Edge in a ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then CM Punk cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase on Hardy. And that's when, you know, Jeff Hardy and CM Punk had, I mean, I guess at this point, we can kind of call it a legendary feud now at this point, right? Because this is what put CM Punk on the map for everybody. I mean, at his initial terrible World Heavyweight Championship run the previous year, but this one right here, because this is when Punk turned heel. He started to get back into a straight edge gimmick, and you know, he was just making all these attacks on Jeff Hardy and his sobriety and calling him a loser and a failure and a piece of shit and never being able to get his life correct and all this shit. And, you know, like, Jeff Hardy won the World Heavyweight Championship from CM Punk at, because, you know, this is all building up. It wasn't just something that happened out of nowhere. CM Punk was cheating. You know, he got out of the match at the Great American Bash before he turned full on heel. And, you know, he won the World Heavyweight Championship back from CM Punk in the was it in the main event of Night of Champions? I'm not even sure if it was the main event. Probably was. I can't remember. Jeff was like the most popular, right? He was at that point, not just the popular, he was the top guy in the company at that point. I don't care what anyone says about Cena. For that little small period of time in the summer of 2009, Jeff was the most popular wrestler, was the top guy in WWE. And if that didn't prove anything, the TLC match, that main event at SummerSlam that year, absolutely proved it. I mean, unfortunately, that'll be Jeff Hardy's last time, in my opinion, as a main event superstar. I'm not talking about his TNA run. I mean, something that's a little bit more, you know, with validation attached to it. And he lost the match against CM Punk in the TLC match, right? And this is when we start to get into the problems with Jeff Hardy. Because after he lost that match, he had a rematch against Punk in a steel cage. You know, this was, if he lost the match, he has to leave. I think, right? Was that the stipulation? Doesn't matter anyways, because he still left WWE afterwards. You know, he left that on his back. You know, he lost the steel cage match, and then CM Punk attacked him on the top of the ramp before, you know, Hardy left. And he was gone for a minute. And this right here wasn't pleasant times for Jeff Hardy. Because, like, I'm trying to think, was it like a couple of weeks later? That's when I seen that for the first time. Like, that's when Jeff Hardy, he got caught with steroids and a bunch of like prescription pills. I mean, I think he had cocaine also. Like, he got caught, and you know, they try to get him on drug trafficking. That was like not even a month, like a couple of weeks later after the shit was CM Punk in the steel cage. And you know, at the time also, because I think Jeff, he was starting to go through like his restless leg syndrome, where like, you know, your legs feel like they're fucking decaying on you and you can't really walk, and you'll get like spasms in your leg at the most random fucking times. So that was also contributing to Jeff Hardy's problems, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't just the cocaine and stuff like that, you know. I think he had like, you know, like the little soma shits that used to pop back in the early 90s. He got caught for that too, if I remember correctly, going off the top of my mind here. Because it just shocked the fuck out of me to see him leave WWE, and then like a couple of weeks later, he was already in trouble. And, you know, he went to TNA and he did his thing. You know, he popped up on the same episode when Shawn and Brett were simulcasted on the other show. And it was the first time they were doing their whole little, you know, Monday Night War revising, in which failed miserably for TNA. And like I said, I'm not going to go through Jeff Hardy's entire run in TNA, because honestly, I can't remember the portion of it, the majority of it. What I do want to talk about, though, is the fact that, yeah, he had a somewhat strong run in 2010. Turned heel also for a little bit when he was feuding with Kennedy and Kurt Angle, and he was with Abyss and Jeff Jarrett and this stupid fucking Angle. And he had like that cool looking demon title and shit, and he was coming out looking like the Joker mixed up with, you know, Billy Joe Armstrong or some shit. It was fucking crazy. But it was unique only because I never seen Hardy as a heel before. I mean, technically he was a heel when he was with Gangrel and, you know, the early Hardy Boys incarnation back in 99. But I mean, Jeff Hardy as a single superstar, never seen him as a heel, so it was unique. But, you know, it ended pretty shortly because Jeff had the situation at Victory Road with Sting. We all know how the story goes. Jeff was under the influence, and Eric Bischoff picked up on it. Pretty sure Sting picked up on it right away too. And Eric Bischoff made a bit of an audible, told Sting to hard way pin Jeff, just shoot on him, fuck it. And it was the main event. And Jeff was clearly fucking out of it. He was fucked up. And Sting ended up pinning Jeff Hardy hard way, shoot style. Hit him with the Scorpion Death Drop. Jeff tried to kick out. Sting wouldn't allow him to kick out. He won the match. Jeff is bewildered in the ring. Really, I can't tell if he's bewildered or if he's like still under the influence. And Sting leaves the ring, and you can see him talking to the audience like he's disappointed. You know, he's telling the audience, because the audience are saying things to him, and Sting's like, I know, as if to say I'm sorry, because, well, Jeff fucked up. And it just sucks because, you know, as you guys know, Sting is Jeff Hardy's hero. He's one of Jeff Hardy's, if not his favorite wrestler. So to see him in the ring like that was horrible. And, you know, he tried to come back and make all these apologies and shit like that. And, you know, it just sucked. It just sucked seeing Jeff Hardy in that state of mind and, you know, making a complete mockery, not just out of TNA, but out of professional wrestling as a whole. I know people like to blame TNA. Oh, you guys should have had this more under control. No, Jeff Hardy's a grown-ass man. Fuck out of here. At that time, Jeff would have been like, what, 33 years old? I don't think he would have been 34 in August, so he would have been 33 at that time in February. No, or March, whatever month that show took place in. But no, that was all Jeff Hardy. And, you know, I think he had like a probation sentence or some shit like that after the whole little drug trafficking shit. Or I can't remember, like, cause I know he went to jail for a little bit, for like a week or so later on that year. I don't know if it stemmed off of the situation back in 2009, but that'd be a long time period in between. But I guess it was a drug trafficking charge, so maybe, I don't know. But, you know, Jeff Hardy, again, I'm not going to touch too much on this because I want to get through this as quick as possible. You know, he did his thing in TNA, kind of being used as, you know, that John Cena, if you will. I remember he had that match with Austin Aries at Bound for Glory in 2012, and people were pissed off about it when he won the match. But you had to know that they were just trying to do whatever they can to stay afloat. And, you know, not to skim through all this shit, because like I said, I don't want to go too long. I really want to talk more about this portion, because this is when we get to Jeff Hardy's legitimate downfall. And, you know, they come back to WWE in 2018, him and Matt Hardy being gone for almost, you know, at that point, 9 years. No, I'm sorry, it would have been 2017. They came back at WrestleMania 33, so 8 years. And, you know, they got one of the biggest pops, if not the biggest pop of that entire year, when, you know, the New Day introduced them and they came back in that ladder match with Cesaro and Sheamus and, you know, I think Enzo and Cass and the Good Brothers. And, you know, it was a cool moment. It was a really, really cool moment. And it's not as if the Hardy Boys at the time, they were somewhat compelling. They had some, I mean, granted, that was probably mainly Cesaro and Sheamus doing most of the work, but, you know, like, they were having some great matches throughout 2017, and then 2018, Jeff Hardy tried to go solo again, and he won the United States Championship. You know, he did this thing with Randy Orton, and, you know, they were trying their best, because, you know, like, even during this period right here, I think this is when Jeff got in trouble again, you know, in, like, the early portions of 2018, because this is one of his first DUI charges, and, you know, it is what it is. You know, Jeff got in trouble again. You know, I can't remember, because he has gotten arrested so many times. Was this the situation where, like, no, because he was driving. He was fucked up at the time. I think the second time in 2019. Yeah, because he got in trouble that many times. You know, he got in trouble again in 2019. And this is when I think, no, because I think there's another arrest I'm trying to think that I can't remember, when the lady, you know, when Jeff Hardy was really, really fucked up and they caught him passed out on the stairs and shit like that. I think, or was that, I think that was the 2019 shit, right? When he got caught on the stairs and he was fucked up. And then I think, like, again, a couple of months later, that's when he got in trouble again for another DUI. And his life was spiraling out of control, man. At this point, it's not as if WWE can trust him. And essentially, they made him a jobber to the stars, which is just incredible, because it's Jeff Hardy. In the end of the day, you never want to see a talent who was as big as he was at one point now become a fucking jobber. But, you know, that's what it was. And I remember a lot of people being upset that Jeff Hardy, because there was a certain point in time when Jeff was chasing after the 24/7 championship belt, and that was heartbreaking. That was actually heartbreaking to see Hardy reduced to this. And at that point, I was really just thinking to please just retire. Just retire, bruh. Obviously, you're under the influence, because I'm only going to assume the pain over the years of entertaining us is really starting to take a toll on you. And you have to be under the influence in order to, you know, mask the pain. So why constantly put yourself through the pain if this is going to be the end result? And eventually, you know, in 2021, he had a shot. It looked like he was getting a shot in his career, getting a shot in the arm. Because it's not as if WWE, the amount of times that WWE kept putting him in position and wanting so desperately for him to just get his shit together. I don't think anyone wanted Jeff to succeed and get the W as much as WWE, even more so than his fans. Everybody was pulling for Jeff Hardy to just get your shit together, bro. We just want to see you in that top spot. And it's like Jeff, he just refused to get his shit together, man. And, you know, a situation happened during a match on a live show with, you know, the Bloodline, Jeff Hardy, which apparently, you know, involved him, what WWE thought was him being under the influence. You know, it can be disputed whether he was or whether he wasn't. I tend to think that he was just underneath a drug. You know, he got tested for alcohol, and yeah, it came back negative from my understanding, but I still think, and I talked about this at the time, I think it was drug related. They didn't test him for drugs, they tested him for alcohol. But nevertheless, though, he did leave WWE. They tried to get him to come back, coerce him with the Hall of Fame stuff. Jeff turned it down. I wish to God he would have just fucking took it, but he didn't. And then he went to AEW, which we talked about this at the time, was his worst fucking decision, because we know how fucking terrible Tony Khan is when it comes to enabling his talent and never putting his fucking foot down. And we know that he wasn't. I mean, if WWE can't keep Hardy in check, what the fuck is Tony Khan gonna do? And he came to AEW to a large fanfare when he was trying to save Matt Hardy, and for some reason, rather than saving Matt Hardy immediately, he started doing his stunts and shit before he saved him. And it wasn't even like a month or two later, he got in trouble again. This time, probably one of his final times that I can remember. And the video's online. You know, Jeff Hardy, this is like his third DUI, I think. Jeff Hardy's like swerving in and out of traffic and shit like this. Mind you, just to kind of, I didn't say this, but WWE, they didn't even release Jeff Hardy because of the situation, by the way. They were trying to get him to go to rehab again. This is 20 years after his first offense. When they tried to get him to go to DUI, they tried to do it again, and he turned it down because he thought he didn't have a problem. It's fucking ridiculous. He's 44 years old at this time. At that point in time, Hardy was probably like, what, 26, 25? This time, he's fucking 44, and he's still with the same bullshit. But like I said, he's like swerving in and out of lanes, and multiple people are calling the cops on him and shit, and eventually the cops did pull him over, and he's obviously fucking bombed. He's wasted out of his goddamn mind. He can't even do the protocol DUI test and shit, and he failed it miserably. Who the fuck can't tell that he's drunk? One of the officers did recognize him, try to get an autograph maybe. Man, that was the last time he got in trouble. And then AEW, just like WWE, they can't trust him. So they also made him a jobber. And it just pisses you off because it's like multiple upon multiple upon multiple upon multiple chances to get his shit together in multiple fucking companies. And this time it's even worse because it's like he was driving on a suspended license. You know what I mean? You know, he was supposed to have one of those, like, those interlock device things inside the car, which he never got. And he got another fucking chance. And it's like, at this point in time, you start to feel less bad for Jeff Hardy, and you start to feel anger. Because it's like, buddy, if you don't give a fuck about yourself, don't give a fuck about yourself. But this is your third DUI charge. Out of all these DUIs, you could have killed multiple people. And at a certain point, you're just like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. Just fuck you, man. Fuck you. You're no different than Sonny. You're a piece of human shit. You guys heard about those two bicyclists who died like 2 weeks ago because some fucking loser hit them with their car? What were their the sports guys? I don't know if they were soccer players or baseball guys or whatever the case may be. Rest in peace to them. I'm sorry if I can't remember what was their profession, but or was it hockey? I think it was hockey actually. They got murdered. That's the same situation that Jeff Hardy could have done to somebody. Sonny murdered somebody. She's in jail, or she's in prison right now. Hope she rots. Fuck her. And Jeff Hardy was in the exact same position, multiple upon multiple upon multiple times. Again, it becomes, oh, well, I'm sad for Jeff Hardy at one point in time because look what you're doing to your fucking career over goddamn nothing. He right now should be in the same position as John Cena. He right now should be in the annals of the greatest main eventers in the history of the goddamn wrestling business. And he threw it all the way because his immature ass couldn't put the bottle down for 5 minutes to drive from point A to point B. Dude has kids. Dude has a fucking wife. And I don't give a shit. People are like, well, Devontae, he's getting his life back together right now. Too little, too late. Too little, too late when it comes to me. Because how I look at the situation with Jeff Hardy is, how the fuck do you know he got his life back together? You said that back in 2008, or 2009, or 2011, or 2003, or 2018, or 2019. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You guys are just you, Jeff Hardy. And mind you, I'm a diehard Jeff Hardy mark. I'm a diehard Jeff Hardy mark, but not enough of a fucking mark to look at this situation and then say to myself after the 10 billion fucking time that, oh, Devontae, you're just a hater. You guys are, you talk about Jeff Hardy. You guys are the reason why Jeff Hardy got behind the wheel because he knows no one's going to hold him accountable for his bullshit. You guys are just as much responsible for the people that Jeff Hardy could probably potentially fucking kill, even himself. You guys are just as much responsible for his downfall than Jeff Hardy himself. Because he knows that no one's going to fucking look he knows his fans are going to look the other way. You guys are just as fucking responsible. And he became a jobber in AEW, a fucking nobody. Then eventually he leaves AEW, and now he's fucking around in TNA. Almost 50 years old. Should be probably one of the biggest stars of all time. Thrown all away. Now he's negotiating with WWE. Dude's prime, his entire prime, thrown away over a decade ago. Nearly 15 years. Almost to the day. What today's date is, actually? You know what? That DUI arrest from Jeff Hardy that I talked about, or the drug traffic, fuck, so many goddamn charges. That drug trafficking charge, that was 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I had to look that up just to see what kind of fucking charges he had outright. I had to pause it for a little bit, like 2 minutes ago, to see, oh wait, what? That date? That was 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, of the 15th year anniversary since that actually took place. 15 years ago, Jeff Hardy was recognized as a legitimate fucking main eventer worldwide. Shouldn't be that way, man. It shouldn't be that way. He is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Easily one half of one of the greatest tag teams of all time. One of the most over guys in the history of the business. You say the name Jeff Hardy today, and people still talk about TLC matches. People still do the little Jeff Hardy dance. People coloring their hair, people probably getting into alternative lifestyles through any other means outside of wrestling because of Jeff Hardy. That much of an influence thrown away because he couldn't get his shit together. I'm 32 years old. I've been watching Jeff wrestle since I was 6 years old. All thrown away. He has spawned generations of influence. Makes you, again, it goes beyond sad, and just, it's flat out frustration. It's straight up annoyance to see what he did to his career. Shouldn't have been this way, man. It should not be this way. Right now, Jeff should just retire. Retire, go into the Hall of Fame, never wrestle again. Save some shred of your dignity that you have left. Let us just remember Jeff Hardy when he was at his best. Don't wrestle anymore. You have nothing left to offer. Just, man, out of all the downfall videos I've done, this actually got me legitimately frustrated just thinking about all that and thinking about where Jeff Hardy should be right now. Knowing that my life personally was affected because of people like that motherfucker driving drunk and all this shit. And it's like, you hate to feel this way about people who you would consider guys who you looked up to growing up. Again, out of all the downfall videos I've done, maybe of all the videos I've done so far, anytime I talk about Jeff Hardy, it's always personal. And it pisses me off every time I think about it. Shouldn't be this way, man. Shouldn't be this way. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below in regards to this video. Let me hear some of your favorite thoughts, some of your favorite moments from Jeff Hardy. A downfall that lasted over 15 years. From a guy who at that 15th year mark, earlier on, before it actually started, or I guess the first year mark, was already considered a legend. Before, barely in his 30s, considered a legend. Everybody wanted Jeff to succeed, except for Jeff Hardy. My name is Devontae, and I'll catch you guys later. Deuces, P. Ice.